At the wedding, my wife chose the dance floor, and I chose a romantic move she never expected. The distance between us. The garden wedding was everything beautiful and bittersweet. Jasmine vines twisted through white lattice arches, lanterns cast amber pools across stone pathways, and somewhere in the distance, the ocean whispered against the shore. Tariq stood near the dessert table, a glass of sparkling water untouched in his hand, watching his wife dance with another man. Not just any man. Hamza. Her college friend, the one with easy charm and a laugh that carried across the entire reception. Enora's head tilted back as she spun, her emerald dress catching moonlight, her smile wide and genuine in a way Tariq hadn't seen in months. Maybe longer. He didn't feel jealous. That would have been simpler. Instead, he felt the hollow ache of recognition. She was happy, just not with him. "Your wife looks stunning tonight," someone said beside him. An elderly aunt, maybe the bride's grandmother, her eyes kind but knowing. "She always does," Tariq replied quietly. "Then why are you over here while she's over there?" Good question. 6 months ago, he would have been on that dance floor, pulling Enora close, making her laugh until her sides hurt. But somewhere between his promotion and her opening her architecture firm, between his late nights and her weekend conferences, they'd become polite strangers sharing a bed and grocery lists. The band transitioned to something slower, more romantic. Couples paired off. Hamza said something that made Enora laugh again, and Tariq saw her glance toward where he stood. Their eyes met across the dance floor. In that brief moment, he saw it all, the question, the hurt, the exhaustion of being the only one trying to hold them together. She looked away first. Tariq set down his glass with sudden clarity. He'd been waiting for the right moment to fix things, as if marriage were a problem to solve with the correct equation. But love wasn't a project. It was a choice made and remade, especially when it hurt. He turned and walked toward the parking area, purpose straightening his shoulders. The elderly woman smiled, watching him go. She'd seen this before, the moment when someone decides to fight. Echoes of yesterday. Tariq's hands trembled as he unlocked his car. In the glove compartment, beneath registration papers and a flashlight, his fingers found what he was looking for, a small wooden box, carefully preserved. Inside lay a vinyl record in a weathered sleeve, the edges soft from years of careful handling. Their song. Moonlight Serenade. The one playing the night they met. He closed his eyes, letting the memory wash over him. 4 years ago. The bookstore cafe where she'd reached for the same poetry collection he'd been eyeing. She'd smiled, apologized, insisted he take it. He'd suggested they share it instead, over coffee. That coffee lasted 4 hours. They'd talked about everything, her dreams of designing spaces that told stories, his work in documentary photography, the way both of them believed in capturing moments that mattered. When closing time came, neither wanted to leave. "Walk with me," she'd asked. They'd wandered until they found a street musician playing this exact song. Without planning it, without overthinking, Tariq had extended his hand. Enora had taken it. And they'd danced on a cobblestone street with no audience but the stars, moving like they'd known each other for lifetimes. Later that night, sitting on a park bench as dawn approached, Enora had confessed something that haunted Tariq now. "I'm terrified of being forgotten," she'd whispered. "Of becoming invisible to someone I love. My parents barely spoke to each other for 20 years. They shared a house but not a life. I never want that kind of loneliness." Tariq had pulled her close, promising with every fiber of his being that he would always see her, always choose her, always remember who they were together. But promises were easy in moonlight. Living them required daily courage he'd somehow lost. Back at the reception, Enora excused herself from the dance floor. Hamza was nice, but every laugh felt like betrayal. Not to Tariq, to herself. When had she started seeking validation from anyone but her husband? She stepped into the quiet garden path, heels dangling from one hand, and pulled out her phone. Her finger hovered over Tariq's name. What would she even say? That she missed him while standing in the same room? That success felt hollow when she couldn't share it with him? A notification popped up, a photo memory from 3 years ago. Their first anniversary. She'd recorded a voice message for him that night, something private and raw. She'd forgotten about that message. The music suddenly cut out behind her. Confused voices rose. Inora turned back toward the reception, something stirring in her chest. Something was happening. The unexpected gesture. The band stopped mid-song. Guests turned, confused, as someone new approached the microphone. Not the MC, not the best man, but Tariq, carrying something that looked absurdly out of place at a modern wedding, a vintage record player. "Sorry for the interruption," Tariq's voice carried across the garden, steady despite his racing heart. "I need to borrow my wife for a moment." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Inora emerged from the garden path, her heart pounding. What was he doing? Tariq set the record player on the small stage beside the DJ booth, plugging it into the speaker system with hands that barely shook now. Purpose steadied him. He pulled the vinyl from its sleeve with the same reverence he'd shown when photographing their wedding day. 4 years ago, Tariq said, looking directly at Inora across the sea of curious faces, Inora told me she was afraid of becoming invisible, of being forgotten. And I promised her something I haven't kept well lately. Inora's hand flew to her throat. He remembered. After all the silent dinners and careful politeness, he remembered. On our first anniversary, Inora recorded something for me. She was afraid I'd think it was too vulnerable, too raw, but she gave it to me anyway. I've listened to it 100 times, especially lately, when I've been failing at the very thing I promised. He placed a different record on the turntable, one he'd made at a specialty studio, converting her voice message to vinyl so it could never be lost to corrupted files or forgotten phones. The needle dropped. Static crackled. Then Inora's voice filled the garden, younger, lighter, but unmistakably hers. "Tariq, my love, if you're listening to this years from now, I want you to remember something. Marriage won't always be easy. We'll get tired, distracted, lost in our own heads. But I'm choosing you today, and I want to choose you every day after. Even when I forget to say it. Even when we forget to dance. This is my promise, to keep choosing us, to keep fighting for this, to never let us become strangers who share a home. You are my home. Always." A tear rolled down Inora's cheek. Around her, guests wiped their own eyes. The bride clutched her new husband's hand. The elderly grandmother nodded knowingly. But Tariq saw only his wife, frozen in place, remembering who they'd been and who they'd promised to become. He stepped down from the stage and walked toward her, slow and deliberate, giving her every chance to turn away. He wouldn't force this. He could only invite it. When he reached her, he extended his hand, palm up. An offering, not a demand. "I haven't forgotten, Inora. I got lost, but I haven't forgotten." The garden held its breath. Inora looked at his hand, then at his face, really looked, the way she hadn't in months. She saw the sleepless nights in the shadows under his eyes, the weight he carried in trying to be everything she needed, the fear that maybe he wasn't enough. She saw herself reflected back, distant, exhausted, equally afraid. And she realized something profound. He'd been scared too. They'd both been drowning quietly, afraid to reach for each other in case the other let go. Inora placed her hand in his. The dance of rediscovery. The vintage record player crackled to life again, this time with their song, Moonlight Serenade. The same melody from that cobblestone street, from their wedding, from every anniversary after. But tonight it meant something different. Something deeper. Tariq pulled Inora close, one hand at her waist, the other cradling her fingers like precious things he'd nearly lost. They moved slowly, barely swaying, their foreheads touching as tears slipped down both their faces. "I've been terrified," Tariq whispered, his breath warm against her skin. "Terrified that I was losing you to your success, to your dreams, when I should have been celebrating beside you. I got jealous of your career instead of proud. I got small instead of supportive." Inora's fingers tightened on his shoulder. "I pushed you away. Every time you tried to talk, I made excuses. Every time you reached for me, I pretended I was too tired. I thought if I could just build something big enough, prove something important enough, it would fill the space between us. Nothing fills that space except us choosing to occupy it together." They turned slowly under the string lights, the rest of the wedding fading into soft focus. Other couples had joined the dance floor, but Tariq and Inora existed in their own universe, rediscovering the geography of each other's bodies, the way they fit together when they stopped fighting it. "I saw you laughing tonight," Tariq said. "Really laughing. And I realized I haven't made you laugh like that in months. I've been a burden instead of a partner." "You've never been a burden." Inora pulled back just enough to meet his eyes. "But I needed to hear my own voice tonight, that recording. I needed to remember that I promised this too. That choosing each other isn't about one person doing all the work. It's about both of us showing up." Tariq's hand moved from her waist to cup her face, his thumb tracing the trail of her tears. "I want to show up, Inora. Every day. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard." She leaned into his touch, a small sound escaping her throat. Relief, release, recognition. "I want that too. I've been so scared of becoming my parents that I started creating exactly what I feared. The silence. The distance. The polite facade." "Then let's be loud," Tariq said, a smile finally breaking through his tears. "Let's be messy and honest and awkward. Let's fight if we need to, cry if we need to, but let's never again pretend everything is fine when it's not." Inora laughed, really laughed, the sound bubbling up from somewhere deep and genuine. "You want us to be messy. I want us to be real." The song swelled around them, and Tariq spun Inora out and back in, the movement instinctive, their bodies remembering what their minds had forgotten. She crashed against his chest, breathless, her arms wrapping around his neck as they stood still in the middle of the turning dance floor. "I love you," she breathed against his ear. "I never stopped. I just forgot how to show it." "I love you," Tariq replied, his arms tightening around her waist. "And I'm sorry for forgetting to ask about your day, your dreams, your fears. For treating our conversations like checklists instead of connections." They swayed there, holding each other like lifelines, while the music played and the wedding continued around them. The bride caught Inora's eye and mouthed, "Beautiful." The elderly grandmother smiled knowingly. When the song ended, Tariq didn't let go. Neither did Inora. They stood forehead to forehead, breathing together, finding synchrony again after months of discord. "Take me home," Inora whispered. "Let's leave right now and talk until sunrise. Let's remember why we chose this. Let's choose it again." Tariq nodded, unable to speak past the emotion clogging his throat. They gathered their things quietly, slipping away from the celebration hand in hand, leaving behind the expectations and appearances and polite distance. They were done pretending. It was time to be real again. Choosing each other again. They drove with the windows down, salt air streaming through the car, neither speaking but both present in a way they hadn't been in months. Tariq's hand found Inora's across the center console. She laced their fingers together, holding on. They didn't go home. Not yet. Instead, Tariq pulled into a beach access point, the same one from their engagement night. Without discussion, they kicked off their formal shoes and walked barefoot across cool sand, the ocean a dark mirror reflecting fractured moonlight. "Tell me everything," Tariq said, stopping where the waves just barely reached their feet. "Everything I've been too distracted to ask. How does it feel, running your own firm? What keeps you awake at night? What makes you proud?" Inora's throat tightened. When was the last time someone asked her these questions? When was the last time Tariq had space in his worry to make room for her truth? So she told him. About the terror of signing the lease, the exhilaration of her first major client, the imposter syndrome that whispered she wasn't good enough. She told him about the project she was most proud of, designing a community center in their old neighborhood, and how she'd wanted to share every detail with him but felt like she'd be bragging. "Not bragging," Tariq interrupted gently. "Sharing. There's a difference. And I want all of it, the triumphs, the failures, the boring middle parts. I want to know your days, not just survive alongside them." They sat in the sand as dawn began painting the horizon in shades of amber and rose. Tariq talked too, about the documentary project he'd abandoned because he couldn't figure out how to balance it with work, about feeling inadequate when her career took off, about the shame of his own jealousy. "I thought being a good husband meant providing stability," he said. But I forgot that it also means being a partner. Celebrating your wins, supporting your risks, being genuinely interested in your journey even when mine feels stagnant. Your journey isn't stagnant, Inora said fiercely. You just convinced 300 wedding guests to stop everything and bear witness to our marriage. You reminded me who I wanted to be. That took courage I'd forgotten you had. Tariq smiled, the expression tentative but real. I was terrified you'd walk away. That I'd waited too long. I almost did. Inora's voice broke. Not physically, but emotionally, I was checking out. Building walls. Pretending independence was the same as strength. What changed? Hearing my own voice. Remembering that love isn't just a feeling, it's a practice. And I've been out of practice. They stood as the sun fully crested the horizon, turning to face each other in the golden light. Without planning it, without the pressure of an audience or the romance of a wedding, they joined hands. I choose you, Tariq said. Today, tomorrow, and every day after. When it's easy and especially when it's hard. When you're celebrating and when you're struggling. I choose us. I choose you, Inora echoed, tears streaming freely now. Not the version I wish you were or the version I remember. The real you, right now, flawed and scared and trying. I choose us too. They kissed as the sun rose, tasting salt and tears and new beginnings. When they finally pulled apart, Inora laughed, that genuine, unguarded sound Tariq had fallen in love with 4 years ago. What? He asked, smiling at her smile. We just renewed our vows in formal wedding clothes on a beach at sunrise. We're going to look ridiculous walking to the car. I don't care. Tariq pulled her close, spinning her in the sand. Let's be ridiculous together. 3 months later, they established a new tradition. Friday night dances in their living room, no phones, no distractions, just them and whatever music moved them. Some nights they talked through every song. Other nights they simply held each other, relearning the language of presence. Inora's firm flourished, and Tariq finally pursued his documentary project. But now they shared the journey, the late-night strategy sessions, the celebration dinners, the moments of doubt and breakthrough. They learned to fight productively, cry openly, and laugh often. Because marriage wasn't the wedding day. It wasn't even the romantic gestures, though those mattered. Marriage was the daily choice to show up, to listen, to see each other clearly and love what they saw, not despite the flaws but including them. The vinyl record stayed on their shelf, a reminder that promises aren't made once but renewed constantly. And every time they passed it, they remembered, love isn't about possession or pride. It's about choosing each other, again and again, especially when hearts drift apart. That's when real love begins. Lessons from the heart. 1. Love is not a destination reached but a garden tended daily. Without attention, even the strongest roots wither, but with care, it blooms eternal. 2. Distance grows not from grand betrayals but from small silences accumulated. Speak your truth, share your days, and never let politeness replace intimacy. 3. Choosing someone once at an altar is beautiful, but choosing them again in ordinary moments, when tired, when hurt, when scared, that is where forever lives. 4. Marriage thrives not when two people never drift but when they learn to navigate back to each other, transforming every return into a deeper commitment than the first hello.